Okay, so I'm Jeff. I realized listening to the other talks that there's a few slides I should have thrown in ahead of time. There's not a slide on what hiatus is or what I do for hiatus, so I'm just gonna like ad lib right now. I'm also not sure exactly like what I can share with hiatus on the data side. We're more of a secretive company. We're more bootstrapped than I think of a lot of other companies. So it's mostly from my own experience and like purely tactical things I've learned from being on 16 different marketing teams. And the slide templates are a little bit generic, but it's actually from the time I ran my own marketing agency, and this is just like our pitch deck stuff. So for hiatus, I'm the head of growth. I was the first marketing hire. I was hired about a year and a half ago. We didn't have an in-house marketing team before then, and since then we have three now. We have three main roles for marketing. I broke down our marketing into like three pillars to spearhead our entry into in-house marketing. I did all three of them, which is creative, data, and media. I've like the other two people on my team do 1.5 of those, so I only do like 1.5 of these pillars nowadays, and I do more like R&D lately. I guess I have to talk a little bit more about hiatus. So hiatus is a personal financial management fintech. We do budgeting, subscription management, and bill negotiation. So anything related to managing your finances, personal finances, family finances, that's what we do. We were not very large on the digital scene before I joined, but in January we went from like barely anything to the largest TikTok advertiser in like January for a while. I came from an agency background, so we wouldn't have even been a portfolio client. We were too small to even be on that agency's roster, and we would be like a flagship client now based off of just marketing spend like a year and a half later. So that's hiatus. I probably won't talk about them that much more, but these tactics are a lot of the things I've done to run a program. Yeah, so the agenda is just an intro about who I am, like where I come from, where my experience comes from. I could give you guys a lot of stats. I think a lot of other talks give you like numbers and revenue graphs and so on. I'm not a big believer of that for these kind of talks because like my stats can be very different from your stats. Like even for Hopper, like the marketing distribution is just so different, like between even similar brands. So it's not, I think, that useful to give numbers such as like 59% lift or 70% lift and so on. So I'd rather like you guys just evaluate me on the merit of my tactics and like the knowledge sharing I'm giving, like what things I'm actually doing rather than the numbers that came out of it. So this is going to be a much more tactical talk than I think a lot of other ones that are more like high level. I started things from the ground up. I still have my hands in the Facebook campaigns. Like to this day, like while I'm on stage, no one's looking at our advertising. So like, you know, you have to like run a marketing program with a very high like quality assurance for that reason. So like just jump into things, starting with the intro. I'm relatively new to having a career at all. I'm only like 4 years out of college. I spent 1.5 years doing paid search analytics at Merkle. I spent half a year doing paid social and programmatic there too. I moved to Within for like full funnel paid media for half a year. Ran mostly in retail. I spent half a year while at hiatus doing like a freelance biz marketing agency. I was really afraid of my marketing knowledge actually stagnating like while I was in-house. I've been full remote at hiatus for about 1.5 years now. I worked on 16 different marketing programs in a lot of different verticals, like 5 fast fashion, 2 furniture, 1 motorcycle, 1 account-based marketing. It's like B2B, a music studio, 2 personal coaches, 1 nonprofit, 2 video games. I've ran like all kinds of analytics where it's like GA, data studio, like Google Sheets, SQL query databases, even like engineers gave me a web page of like text on a screen. So, and then also like from that experience, I ran like a digital campaign across pretty much anything, like from Pinterest, like anything you can name. So like how we run marketing for hiatus, I think measurement is the first place to start for any program. That was the first thing I did, just make sure that we had tags for everything, got us like a GTM account and so on. So for like measurement, like Adjust is like an MMP. For context, hiatus is a web advertiser. I've mostly done web in the past. But I would just encourage, like, if you're starting a marketing program from scratch or just doing your due diligence, to have platform tags, server-to-server conversion API, GA, URL params, or website event listeners. Like, those are all like really good things to do. I'd recommend starting with GA as the bare minimum, and if you do SQL, I recommend it. Like, I learned SQL on my first job, so I built all of our own dashboards. And I'm sorry, this is a really boring slide. Like, the last time I talked about this, like, I knew it's not that exciting, but I think it's really, really important for the job. And yeah, like, and here are some things you can do for your analytics program. Once again, not that interesting, but I also think it's really important to just like check off the boxes for like what you should do. You should have ROI for every acquisition effort always. Check your customer client cohort quality, have lifecycle marketing insights, activation results, incrementality analysis, linear regression analysis, statistical significance for confidence intervals. I think the last three things are a lot more important nowadays because like direct measurement's a lot harder. We are starting to max out our digital channels, so I'm starting to do like branding offline campaigns, and like statistics, media mix modeling is necessary for that. So it's important that someone on the marketing team has some familiarity, and the data science team shouldn't be like completely divorced from like what you're doing anyways. At the very least, like have an ROI on like what you're doing. Like everything should have some form of measurement. So the second pillar is creative fuel. This is just like how we've built creatives like from the ground up. So this is like incredibly practical advice. A lot of marketing is based on your creatives. So like I would highly recommend producing creatives yourself. Even if you're a media marketer, you have a creative team. Just getting experience with producing, like what it takes to have graphics or work with freelancers and agencies is really nice to know, like how to bring that creative pipeline into your media mix. And then over time, like from that experience, you can gain in-house capabilities, which I also like recommend from the ground up, of pre-production, creator sourcing, production, and editing. Once again, like very tactical, but these are the steps I would take to build a creative team from the ground up. Like we started with nothing. Now we have a creative director who's one of the pillars that is in charge of that while I'm doing other things. And then for the pipeline itself, have an archive of previous results, a system for managing creative work in progress, regular brainstorming, an outreach system, content creator guides, a creative analysis, cadence. I can definitely ask questions at the end if this is like too tactical, but I find this like incredibly useful to like actually drive results. I think this is what matters. Like we can say we want to get on CTV, but like how to go about it is like this is a nuts and bolts of how I would do it. And lastly, for the media pillar, I do the paid media still. We hired a third person for the team that is in charge of a lot of the partnership stuff. For paid social specifically, I would try to produce creatives that shared across many paid social channels. So like we found TikTok to kind of be the litmus test for all of the paid social channels. If you succeed on TikTok, you can succeed anywhere. So like if you're a modern day marketer doing digital, like I would just scroll through TikTok. I think that is what it is. Like everyone's a content creator nowadays, whether you know it or not, whether you're successful or not, you are a content creator, and like you have to earn that attention because CPMs are just so much harder. I mean, are so much higher, and CACs are so much higher too. Once again, very tactical advice, but I would have very automated campaigns. I don't think like marketing has stayed the same. In the past, you would do a lot of like interest audience targeting, and you would do a lot of hands-on work. I think it's shifted to being more on a channel, like in general, versus optimizing it. But for all paid social campaigns, I've done this for Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, and so on. Just to have like a set of main campaigns, you don't need that many. Respect data volume, and I could talk with you about that afterwards if you have questions, but like data volume is a huge component to media management. Have a broad audience to start with, standard copy, experiment campaign templates, and consistent naming conventions, because your naming conventions are going to be a big part of your analytics. And especially when you have a larger and larger team, it's going to be really hard to report back on like what's working and what's not, even on the creative side. And then there's some like granular media optimizations that are nice that everyone knows about. The only thing that I think is a little bit interesting is plotting performance at different spend levels. That is something that we found a lot of success with, and I found in my career in the past. With paid search, this is kind of just like a 5-line way to run paid search, which I think generally will hold up for any marketing campaign. You start with Google Ads, then maybe Microsoft Ads. Apple Search Ads is also very similar too. You have like non-brand, brand, exact phrase match campaign split outs. You have a DSA campaign. Your ad group should just be as granular as your ad copy will be. And I highly recommend as much automation as possible. Like, we've generated a lot of revenue from the ground up in Google Ads. Like, I built our Google Ads account in like 3 hours, and it's really automated. So it's just like, I think, time in the market versus like actually optimizing nowadays for like how to succeed in a lot of paid media channels, including like CTV. So it's more about like talking to people on how to get on them than being too focused on how to optimize them. And the last thing, which is also the most interesting one, and we have a full-time person to work with this, is affiliate content creators and custom partnerships. I think content creators and influencers are a good complement to paid social. So like, everyone should be working with influencers if you're trying to advertise on paid social channels. So I think there's an earlier talk about working with an agency or an in-house team, and I would say like, agencies are really good for establishing a baseline if you don't know how to do something. Like, for affiliate, we hired an agency, but once you know how to run it yourself, like, I highly recommend trying to in-house it, because you'll gain a lot more results and scale through doing it that way. You have to have really strong analytics, control payments between more interesting tactics. In affiliate, there's a lot of different variability in cohort quality. Between different traffic sources, even influencers drive different kinds of users between them. I'll use tracking text such as like Bitly to get started out with, but Impact is just a great catch-all for so many different sources of traffic. And affiliate's just a great complement to just custom deals with agencies, partnerships, and like TV spots and so on. So it's like a very nuanced channel. And this is pretty insane, and we haven't done this a lot, but I think forecasting is a thing that finance will ask of you a lot, or product and so on. And I think it's next to impossible to see like what your next month's going to be at a high growth rate. But I'm just saying, like, if you really want to do this and take this seriously, then I would just take this kind of model that I've adapted from the growth hacking book. It's like a Bible on growth marketing, of the ICE framework on how to rank experiments, see like what a month worth of experience adds up to you, and then seeing like what came out of that, like how much growth or results and so on, to predict like what's going to happen next. There's no easy way to do forecasting, but I think that's just the best or the most robust way. So yeah, that was incredibly in the weeds, and from like everyone's faces, I can tell that might have been too much, but I can definitely adjust. I think it's really useful, but maybe not the most relevant. So if anyone has any questions, I can take them.